We hear two words today that, well, let's be honest, we have a tendency to use a lot without really thinking about what we mean. And it's truth and love. I mean, let's be honest, particularly the word love, when we think about it, we talk about all these things that we quote unquote love. Ice cream, our pets, inanimate objects. How many of us have said, "Oh, I love my car"? And yet the word love is so important. And we know that just from the last few weeks of the readings that we have heard. The issue of love has shown up over and over and over again. But have we really paid attention to what we've been told? Do we really understand when Jesus uses the word, when the scripture used the word love? Do we really get what it is that we're talking about? Love consists of this: not that we have loved God, but that God has loved us. God is love. In so many ways, as we hear these words, they can almost be like a throwaway line. And yet, they are at the heart of us beginning to understand how we unpack the meaning of love. Because if God is love, what does that mean? In one sense, more importantly, what does that mean for us? I look at my own dad. He grew up in a home with two functioning alcoholics. And I remember one of the things he told me was that through his whole time living with his parents, he had no doubt that they loved him. But in his life, they never said that to him. The first person to tell him directly that he was loved was my mother. And the funny thing about that is, one of the things my family does, we almost do it without thinking about it now because we grew up with it. Before you leave anyone, before you hang up the phone, we always say, "I love you." And I remember when my dad was in the nursing home, it struck the nurses and attendants so much because every single one of us, before we left my father's room to leave, said, "I love you, Dad." Now that could just be words, but honestly, it was something we grew up with. It is a reality that we lived with. Because when God speaks of love, it is not simply about feelings. It is ultimately about how we choose to act and how we choose to treat each other. Quite frankly, you can love someone and not like them. But you cannot be a Christian and choose not to love someone. You can be a Christian and not like someone, but you must love them. You must want what is best for them. You must want that their lives move them closer to God. Because this comes back to the other question. Truth. What is it? We live in a world that believes truth should be relative. It's my truth and your truth. Well, as Christians, we know that's a bunch of malarkey. There are not multiple truths. There is one truth that is objective, real, and unchanging. Because truth is not a set of ideas. It's not about how I feel about something. It's not about how I may choose to look at the world. Because quite frankly, the way I look at the world might be wrong. It's about a relationship with Jesus. And that is the only way to discover the truth. Because Jesus told us, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He didn't say I am one of the ways. He was very clear on this. He is the only way, the only truth, and the only life. When we realize that, we come to look at the choices that he made and the truth that he lived out, which is love. And that is ultimately what the cross is about. Jesus chose to love us to his death. It's not about a feeling, it's about a choice, a determination, about the truth of who he is and the truth of who we must be. It's not a choice. We either love as Jesus loved, or we are not Christian. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a struggle. There's a reason I go to confession as often as I do. But that must be our desire. That must be what we are seeking to live out, even when we falter and when we fail. Because God's love is so deep that he chooses to forgive us, to give us the strength to be healed, to pick ourselves up, and to move on. And that is the truth of Christian life. We are not a church of saints. We are a church of sinners striving by the grace of God to live the truth in a life of love.